it's like some weird and inhumane social science experiment. What happens when a right-wing news site comes into collision, metaphorically and perhaps literally, with the terrifying phenomenon that is candidate Trump? Here to help us understand that phenomenon a little better is Eric Boehlert. He's been on the show before. He is a senior fellow at Media Matters for America, former senior writer for Salon, author of the books Lapdogs, How the Press Rolled Over for Bush, and Bloggers on the Bus, How the Internet Changed Politics and the Press. Eric, thanks for coming back.
Oh, my pleasure.
So you've been covering this story and analyzing it as well as anybody I know. Tell us a little bit about just give us a little background, if you would, on the Breitbart Showdown.
Yeah, well, this was over a week ago after Trump had a big Super Tuesday, and he gave that weird, rambling, incoherent victory speech for 45 minutes. He was leaving, and a reporter for Breitbart, conservative right-wing site, was trying to ask him a question, and his campaign manager, grabbed this young woman's arm and apparently almost dragged her to the ground, left bruises on her arms. And this was sort of the pulling of the thread that soon began to unravel the whole site. Because if you're a normal, even quasi-normal, even if you're a very opinionated journalism site, you unequivocally, automatically support your reporter. You condemn any kind of manhandling. That assaulting the press is so far out of bounds for any normal campaign. Instead, the Breitbart site, which has been in the tank for Trump, started trying to mediate this behind the scenes with the Trump campaign. Well, we think it was just a misunderstanding. There was allegations that the editors started denouncing the reporter in conference calls. And then the next day, the Breitbart put up a site basically suggesting she might have been, maybe she didn't know what happened to her arm, and maybe she got the wrong guy, and maybe she was just confused and a little too emotional. So this set off a cavalcade of denunciations within the mainstream press and the right-wing press, and it also started at least 4 resignations from the site. So again, it was this one quick arm pull. Was almost like the yanking of a domino or
Right.
a little wooden structure or something, and it all starts falling down. And it highlighted a couple things. It highlighted how a site like Breitbart really doesn't do journalism in any way, shape, or form, in that they're essentially attached to a political campaign. And it also highlighted, the Trump phenomenon and how they're basically beating up and assaulting reporters, and no one's really doing anything today. And it's not just Breitbart; it's the rest of the mainstream press who, they're in this sort of Stockholm syndrome. Thank you, sir. May I have another?
Right. It's interesting. This story, one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about it with you, Eric, and talk it through with you, is it really is taking place at the intersection of so many important issues. I mean, one, as you say, is the press's willingness. The press nowadays seems, the mainstream media seems which you've been, covering longer than anybody I know, seems so determined to maintain this illusion of impartiality, which includes an inability to interpret information as it comes in. That's the way I take it. That they don't want to criticize Trump or his people, even for what seems at a minimum to be an aggressive and physical act. I think gender is a big piece of this too, because it's a woman, Michelle Fields, I believe is her name, the reporter in question, seems to have been manhandled by a man, and it seems that then you get the loyalty issue where Breitbart, the sites, loyalty to Trump, and really the kind of authoritarian dimension to it, where you follow orders more than you do stick with your own people. I mean, I'm still trying to unravel all these threads, to be honest.
Well, and there's so many. And let's add another one. Remember last year, a year ago, when Hillary Clinton was marching in a 4th of July parade, and there were so many reporters in the parade, this little town upstate New York, I think, that she couldn't even talk to any of the parade spectators. So the campaign momentarily set up sort of a walking rope line around her, And the press went crazy for days and days, nonstop denunciations. How can she push the press around? How can she be so arrogant? And you look at it now and you have to laugh like I do. I mean, are you kidding me? The Trump is now, assaulting reporters, putting them in these pens in the back of the rally. Every rally, he sets aside a couple paragraphs to talk about the disgusting animals in the press pen covering him, and the press lost its everything, lost its mind because Hillary Clinton had a little temporary rope around her while she marched. So, let's not forget that massive double standard. But again, the main point here is Trump has completely rewritten the rules, and the press doesn't know what to do with it because they see him as the goose laying the golden eggs. They see him as this click monster, as this ratings monster. And again, just a couple of days ago, there was a report. Politico had a tough piece about Breitbart's campaign manager, the guy at the center of this assault controversy. Next day, the Politico reporter is banned from Trump rally. And, there are political reporters on Twitter saying, oh, this is awful. I can't believe Trump did this. And I asked one of them, I said, what's Politico going to do institutionally in response? And there wasn't really a response. And they haven't done anything institutionally.
Yeah.
And one other quick point,
sure.
The Clinton, the press was so upset about access. She wasn't answering their questions, and the Clinton campaign was treating the press so bad. There was a meeting in D.C. All the major news organizations got together collectively. What are we going to do? They went to the Clinton campaign. These are our demands. You have to treat us fairly. And there's been nothing like that regarding the Trump campaign, which is 500 times worse than anything the Clinton press team ever did. So it's crazy.
Yeah,
reporter after reporter denied access, kicked out of events, name calling, and the press won't do a thing, won't lift a finger in its own defense.
Right. Yeah, it's absolutely true that there's a double standard, Eric Boehlert. But I'm wondering to what extent it isn't just that Trump understands the financial interests of the press and the fact that he is gold for it. Look, Les Moonves, CBS, has now repeatedly said he actually said, as you know, Trump may be bad for the country, but he's great for CBS. So you have this situation where Trump knows that he is valuable to them in terms of coverage, and that he can get away with whatever he wants to do. Now that's the mainstream press. Now we've got the marginal sort of shadow dwelling pseudo press of an institution like Breitbart, the Breitbart site. There, it just seems to me like the orders come down from the great leader to cut your reporter loose, if reporter is the right term, and I guess it is, your correspondent, and they do it, and anybody that sympathizes with her has got to go too.
Yeah, when we talk about Breitbart being loyal to Trump, and some sites decide they're going to go all in for a candidate, and they support them no matter what, and they defend them, and then that barely describes what's going on with Breitbart. I mean, we're talking sort of weaponized rhetoric. As someone pointed out last month, at one point they published 30 cruise birther stories in like 8 days. This isn't just supporting Trump. This is like their press shop on steroids. So you really have to understand. It's not like, I think we're going to support Trump. We're going to write nice things about him. No, it is scorched earth policy for anyone in the Republican Party, even that Ted Cruz, who is a right-wing radical. They will become the target. So this is sort of a fevered, wild, almost ravenous support for Trump from Breitbart, and that's why it was so fascinating when they came in the crosshairs. Look, last summer there was a report in BuzzFeed that numerous people at the Breitbart site thought Trump was paying the site for coverage. That was the only way they could explain what the heck was going on in terms of their editorial. And that editorial has only been sharpened by a magnitude of 10 or 20 times since then. So when you talk about the orders coming down, it's not just theoretical. There have been people at Breitbart who talk to reporters about the assumption that Trump is paying for this coverage
Well,
because
what's your
nothing else
theory?
could quite explain it.
What's your theory? I mean, I was going to ask you, do you think that's
Yeah,
true? Do you think he is paying for it? Do you think there's something else going on? Because this sort of slavish
yeah,
devotion to Trump predates. I mean, I can understand the conservative mentality bending the knee to the obvious victor, but long before Trump was the obvious victor, they were seemed to be serving his will, doing his
yeah.
bidding. Do you think this is a speculation, obviously, but do you think it's a financial relationship? Do you think it's an ideological one? All of the above? We don't know.
I think he clearly appealed to the wild authoritarian streak at Breitbart. If this is a site that was absolutely ripe for the picking, they have. I've never seen them adhere to any kind of moral compass over the years. Again, I don't want to present. I don't want to pretend like National Review is this paragon of ethics or anything. I disagree with almost everything they publish, but when you look at a site like Breitbart, then you look at National Review, you're like, oh, okay, that's common sense opinion journalism. I disagree with all of it, but it's within the structure of traditional partisan opinion journalism. You look at Breitbart and you're like, this is a whole different weird animal. So I think Trump appealed to that, and like everyone else, what we talked about, Trump being a gold mine, from all indication, once Breitbart embraced Trump in this sort of, again, almost feverish, cultish way, all indications are the site's traffic is doing very well. So I think I don't know if there's a quid pro quo like staffers Breitbart previously suggested, but there does seem to be all indications that it is proving to be profitable for them. Look, if you're a Trump fanatic and you want to live in that silo and you only want to read every day, only good things about Trump, there are relatively limited options in the conservative landscape. Again,
Right.
National Review doesn't like him. People on Fox seem to be split. Rush Limbaugh can't make up his mind. He wants to love Trump, but he doesn't really know what to do. So if you want to go a place that is all glorification Trump 24/7, right now, Breitbart is waving that flag and I think is benefiting financially. In
I,
part because they appear to have no, kind of scruples or
Right,
anything, so they're happy to do it.
which makes them a great match for Trump
Yes,
personality
perfect.
profile. Well, I have to admit though, being that thought experiment of where I would want to go if I was a Trump fanatic might be even my imagination fails me there. But I'm not sure I can conduct that thought experiment. But last area that I wanted to run by you, Eric Boehlert, for
Yeah,
Media Matters, is we talked about the mainstream media. We talked about this odd sort of symbiotic or parasitic
yeah.
relationship between Breitbart and Trump, whatever is behind it. I guess the third area and the one, frankly, that frightens me the most
Yeah,
is the fact that, Trump seems to be a classic authoritarian type leader, political figure. To
right.
me, I see Breitbart as potentially the laboratory for all sorts of other pockets of conservatism, whether they're media pockets or whether they're organizing pockets or what have you. I am frightened of a scenario in which this kind of slavish devotion to Trump gets replicated in
Mhm.
right-wing organizations all across the country.
Well, in terms of organizations being overtaken or new ones popping up and being created.
Well, both, but basically
Yeah,
the idea that the right as it's existed in the last 10 years, as you pointed out, it's not like traditional conservatism. So I'm really concerned about a number of different right-wing organizations
yeah,
and groups
yeah,
becoming quasi-fascistic. I hate to use that word everybody's using, but
yeah,
in
yeah,
terms
yeah.
of dumping their own people, turning on each other in order to show their loyalty to the leader. I think that's frightening. I don't know. What do you
Well,
think?
this is what's going to be fascinating in terms of the conservative media in the coming months. Um, a lot of writers, a lot of pundits on record right now, because they still think there's a chance to stop him before the nomination. Fewer and fewer people think that. being very upfront on the record. He's a disaster. He can't be the nominee. He's going to lose in November. What's going to happen to the conservative media when he becomes the nominee? And they have to look at either sitting out a presidential campaign, which is for these people is unthinkable, sitting on the sidelines and not being a part of it, supporting a Democrat, which a handful of them have said, I will phone bank for Hillary Clinton.
Right.
Or are they going to, as you say, just kind of slowly or eventually say, I'm going to be pro-Trump and I'm going to join this dangerous movement because, I can't vote for a Democrat or I can't sit idly by. I'll give you an example. Karl Rove has been writing for 6 months. Trump's a disaster. Trump's going to ruin the party. Today in the Wall Street Journal, he has an article, he has a column, here's how Trump can win in November, offering his 6 points, all of which Trump will never listen to. They make sense. So that's the early indication or an early kind of red flag in terms of all these people who are on the record trying to stop the Republican Party from saving itself. When it becomes clear they can't, and he's going to win the nominee, as I think he will, where does the conservative media go? Because right now, you read some of these critiques. I mean, I'm almost waiting for Media Matters to ask for permission to cross publish some of these columns.
Right.
Bashing Trump, telling the press, you're going too easy on Trump. I mean, it's an amazing spectacle to see.
I think you should
agreement with conservatives.
I think you should cross-publish their articles on Trump and Breitbart's articles on Cruz. I think you have your content set for you for life. Well, listen, Eric Boehlert, senior fellow at Media Matters, this is a fascinating election and a fascinating phenomenon, and thanks for coming on the show and talking about it.
Oh, my pleasure. I'll talk to you soon.
You bet. Take care.